Have you ever found yourself sitting on the edge of a toddler's bed, the room dark, the white noise humming, and still, they're wide awake, chatting, kicking their legs, maybe even climbing out of bed for the third time? Maybe it's your grandchild, or maybe you remember those days with your own kids. Either way, it's enough to make anyone feel a little worn out. And let's be honest, when toddlers don't sleep, nobody sleeps. Not the child, not the parent, and sometimes not even the grandparent who's just there to help out for the evening. It's one of those universal parenting struggles that hasn't changed much over the years. But the good news is, there are gentle, effective ways to help your little one drift off to sleep without the drama, the tears, or the endless just one more story. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 tried and true bedtime tricks that really work, and they're simple enough to start using tonight. Whether you're a full-time caregiver, a loving grandparent, or just someone who wants to make bedtime a little more peaceful for the whole family, this conversation is for you. Let's start with something that often gets overlooked. Toddlers crave routine, even when they fight it. Now, I know the word routine might sound boring, but for toddlers, it's comforting. Their little brains are growing fast. Every day is full of new sights, sounds, and experiences. So when bedtime rolls around, they need predictability. They need to know what's coming next, because it helps them feel safe. And safety is the doorway to sleep. Think about how you wind down in the evening. Maybe you make a cup of tea, turn off the bright lights, or read a chapter of a good book. That's your body's way of saying, okay, it's time to rest now. Toddlers need that same message, but they need it to be the same message every night. Even something as simple as bath, pajamas, story, snuggles, lights out, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just consistent. And here's the key, stick to it, even when they push back. Because they will test it. That's their job at this age. But when you calmly stick to the same steps every night, you're giving them a sense of stability they can count on. And if you're watching this as a grandparent, you might be thinking, well, I only have them once a week. Does it still matter? Yes. Even if your visit is only for a night, following the same basic structure they know from home helps reinforce that bedtime is not up for negotiation, no matter where they are. Now, let's talk about something a lot of people don't realize is sabotaging bedtime, and that's too much stimulation too close to sleep. We live in a world full of screens, toys that light up and talk, and music that keeps going and going. And while some of it is educational and fun during the day, it can really mess with a toddler's ability to settle down at night. You might notice this: 1 minute, they're calmly playing with a puzzle, and the next, they're bouncing off the walls. That's not just excitement, that's overstimulation. Their nervous system gets revved up, and they don't know how to bring it back down. And when that happens right before bed, getting them to fall asleep can feel like trying to land a plane that hasn't started descending yet. That's why creating a calm zone about an hour before bed can make a huge difference. Turn off the TV. Dim the lights a little. Swap out the noisy toys for quiet activities, like coloring, stacking blocks, or looking at books. Keep the energy low and predictable. And I know, sometimes kids protest. But I want to watch one more show. It's tempting to give in, especially when you're tired and just want peace. But holding that boundary with love is one of the best gifts you can give them. Because every time you guide them back toward calm, you're helping their brain learn how to self-soothe. And that's a skill they'll use not just tonight, but for the rest of their lives. Another powerful bedtime trick that works wonders, especially for kids who struggle with transitions, is using what I like to call a wind-down signal. This is something simple and repetitive that signals the end of the day. It could be a special bedtime song you sing while they brush their teeth. It could be a short, soothing story that's always the last one. Or maybe it's a little lullaby music you play as they get into bed. The key here is that it becomes a cue, a signal to their brain and body that the day is ending and sleep is coming. When that signal becomes familiar, the body starts to respond before you even tuck them in. Their heartbeat slows. Their breathing deepens. They begin to expect rest, and that expectation turns into relaxation. And you know what? It helps you too. Having that calm, gentle moment, singing the same little song or saying the same goodnight words can be incredibly sweet. Especially when the day has been chaotic or hard. It becomes a tiny anchor for both of you. A moment to breathe, to connect, and to say, we made it through another day. Now that we've touched on the power of routine, reducing stimulation, and using a wind-down cue, we can move into something that might surprise you. It's about how much your toddler is sleeping during the day, because that has a big impact on how well they sleep at night. It's easy to assume that if a child skips their nap, they'll be extra tired and go to bed earlier. But here's the twist: tired toddlers don't always sleep better. In fact, overtired toddlers can be even harder to put down. It's like their bodies get a second wind, and suddenly it's full-on circus mode at 8 p.m., running around, jumping on the bed, giggling uncontrollably. That's not just mischief. That's adrenaline. Their little system is overstimulated and out of sync. What helps is making sure they're getting enough daytime rest, but not too much, and not too close to bedtime. Toddlers usually need about one nap a day, and it's best if it ends by mid-afternoon. That gives their body time to wind down before bed, instead of being either too wired or too rested to sleep. And if you're a grandparent caring for them during the day, helping keep that nap on schedule can be a huge gift to the whole family. You're not just giving them a rest, you're protecting their ability to have a smooth evening and a peaceful night. That's something every tired parent appreciates, even if they don't always say it out loud. Another trick that works wonders, especially for kids who resist bedtime, is giving them a sense of choice. Now I know what you're thinking: wait, aren't we trying to get them to listen? And yes, we are. But here's the thing about toddlers: they're discovering their independence. They're testing boundaries, figuring out how the world works. So when bedtime feels like a power struggle, go to bed now, and no, I don't want to. It's often not really about sleep at all. It's about control. Giving toddlers a few small, structured choices can make a big difference. It helps them feel like they're part of the process, not being forced into it. For example, you could ask, do you want to wear your blue pajamas or the ones with the stars? Or, do you want one story or two stories tonight? You're still guiding bedtime, but you're letting them feel involved. That feeling of control helps ease resistance, and it keeps the energy more positive, more cooperative instead of combative. And honestly, it helps us too. It's easier to stay calm and patient when the bedtime routine feels like a shared experience, not a battle. One more thing that doesn't get talked about enough: your calm energy is contagious. Kids, especially toddlers, are incredibly tuned into the emotions of the adults around them. They may not understand why you're stressed, but they can feel it. If we go into bedtime already bracing for a fight, tense, frustrated, thinking here we go again, they pick up on that energy. And it makes it harder for them to relax. But when we show up calm, even if we have to fake it a little, they're more likely to follow our lead. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. We've all had those nights where nothing seems to work, and you feel like you've tried everything. But even just taking a breath before bedtime can help. Maybe you sit quietly for a few minutes before starting the routine, or sip a warm drink while they're in the bath. Whatever helps you feel more centered will help them, too. And if things still go sideways, and sometimes they will, remember, this is a phase. Toddlers are learning so much, and sleep is a skill they develop over time. Every bedtime is a new chance to try again. To adjust, to stay steady, to offer love with boundaries. There's something really powerful about the way we show up during these moments. Toddlers may not remember the details of every night, but they'll remember how it felt. Safe. Predictable. Loving. That's what builds trust. That's what helps them settle, not just for the night, but in the bigger picture of life. Now that we've talked about calming overstimulated evenings, creating routines, supporting healthy naps, and giving choices that empower instead of overwhelm. So, now that we've covered things like managing daytime naps, empowering your toddler with choices, and setting a calming routine, let's get into something that is so simple yet so effective: creating a bedtime ritual that feels like comfort, not a chore. I know, we all have those days when the last thing we want to do is drag out the bedtime routine. But here's a little secret: routines don't have to be complicated to work. In fact, sometimes it's the simplest, most familiar steps that make all the difference. Think about the things that help you unwind after a busy day. Maybe it's a warm cup of tea, reading a book, or taking a deep breath and just slowing down for a moment. Toddlers need that, too. They need something that tells their bodies it's time to transition from the buzz of play to the quiet of sleep. This doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be reading a favorite book, singing a lullaby, or simply dimming the lights and talking in a soft voice. It's about creating that gentle atmosphere that signals to their brain, this is a calm space. It's time to rest. The beauty of a simple ritual is that it gives both of you something to rely on. Kids thrive on consistency, and this doesn't mean you have to follow a perfect schedule every single night, but having that little ritual in place, night after night, gives them something familiar to hold on to. Now, let's talk about a trick that might seem a little unconventional, but believe me, it can work wonders. It's about teaching them to fall asleep independently. This doesn't mean you just put them in bed and walk away without a second glance. No. But it does mean helping them learn to fall asleep on their own, without needing you to stay by their side the entire time. Here's the thing: toddlers are learning that sleep is a part of their world, and that's a skill they'll need for their entire life. And while you want to be there for comfort, you also want them to feel confident enough to drift off without needing to be held or rocked every night. Slowly but surely, they'll start to associate their bed with peaceful rest, rather than with needing constant attention. The key here is gradual withdrawal. If your toddler is used to being rocked or held until they fall asleep, try making small adjustments each night. Maybe you start by sitting next to the crib or bed, then progressively move farther away as the days go on. This gives them the reassurance of your presence while gently encouraging their own ability to self-soothe. And yes, there will be nights when they resist. But it's important to stay consistent. The more you stick with it, the more they'll learn that they can fall asleep on their own, and that the world is safe, even without you right there. I know, this one can be tough for parents and grandparents alike. There's that feeling of, but I just want to comfort them. And I get it. You want to offer that warmth and security, especially when your toddler looks at you with those big eyes. But the beauty of independence is that it allows them to grow stronger in their ability to navigate the world around them, and it actually helps them feel safer in the long run. Now, I want to remind you of something really important, especially if you've had a few nights where it didn't go perfectly. No matter how many tips and tricks you try, remember that there's no such thing as the perfect bedtime. Some nights will be harder than others, and that's okay. Parenting and grandparenting is about patience, not perfection. One of the best things you can do is give yourself grace. Even if things don't go as planned, you're doing your best, and that's enough. Toddlers are going to have their own sleep patterns and habits, and they'll change as they grow. It's all part of the journey. You've already made amazing progress by finding the right routines, being flexible when things go off track, and trying out new strategies to help them get that good night's sleep. So, take a deep breath, and remind yourself that every effort you put into bedtime is building a foundation of trust, comfort, and security for your child. Even the nights that feel tough are teaching them how to rest, how to soothe themselves, and how to embrace the rhythm of sleep. As we wrap up today's video, I just want to encourage you once more. Every parent and grandparent is doing their best, even when it doesn't feel like it. And while we can't always control how toddlers sleep, we can create an environment of peace, consistency, and support that helps them settle into sleep with fewer struggles. Trust the process. And before we end, I'd love to hear from you. What bedtime tricks have worked for you in the past? Or maybe you have some favorite calming routines you'd like to share with others. Drop a comment below. I know everyone would love to hear your tips and stories. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more helpful parenting and grandparenting advice. Thanks for watching, and I hope your next bedtime is a peaceful one. Here's to better sleep and brighter mornings for everyone.